Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Jhon César Neita y soy el curador de la colección de entomología del Instituto Alexander von Humboldt. Junto con Miguel Ángel y Edwin Torres, vamos a hacer una presentación de la colección de lepidópteras que se encuentra depositada en nuestra institución. Como ustedes saben, la colección de entomología del Instituto Alexander von Humboldt es una colección muy joven que nace con el instituto y se fortalece a través de los proyectos de investigación que en el tiempo el instituto ha desarrollado. Uno de estos proyectos de investigación que el instituto desarrolló fue el proyecto de diversidad de insectos de Colombia, el cual permitió que la colección tuviese un crecimiento bastante importante, y este proyecto fue apoyado por la National Society Foundation en colaboración con la Universidad de Kentucky. El instituto tiene 3 grupos banderas sobre los cuales ha hecho muchas investigaciones, y son las hormigas, escarabajos, coprófagos y las mariposas. Como vemos, la historia de la colección de mariposas del Instituto Alexander von Humboldt es bien interesante porque esta colección constituye una donación por parte de una colección privada del Dr. Smith Moon y sumado a ello fortalecido por los proyectos de investigación. Aquí nosotros tenemos una representación de ello. Cada uno de los especímenes en la colección tiene un número único de catálogo, un ID, que lo relaciona con el número de la UES y con el número de las córneas. La representación de la colección del instituto es bien interesante porque están representadas las 7 familias de lepidópteras que hay de mariposas que hay en el país, ninfálides siendo las mejor representadas con 8.911 registros seguidos de licénide y en menor representación Evilide. Si nosotros comparamos la colección del Instituto Alexander von Humboldt con los registros que hay para el país, encontramos que la colección tiene la representación de todas las familias, las 7. En cuanto a los géneros, tenemos que para Colombia se han reportado 752 géneros, el instituto tiene 589. Y en cuanto a las especies, Colombia tiene 3.642, el instituto tiene 1.900. Lo mismo pasa con la representación de la subfamilia. Tenemos que todas las subfamilias están bien representadas en la colección, menos la subfamilia Hesperide, que de las 6 subfamilias que hay dentro de la familia Hesperide, nosotros no tenemos una que nos hace falta. En cuanto a los géneros dentro de las subfamilias de mariposas, encontramos que todas están bien representadas. Por ejemplo, en el caso de Hesperide, que en Colombia hay 144 especies, nosotros tenemos 121. Y para el caso de las ninfálides, tenemos que Colombia tiene 208 géneros y nosotros tenemos 184 en la colección. Los especímenes tipos de la colección del instituto también es bien interesante porque tenemos un total de 27 holotipos, 14 alotipos y 78 paratipos de 48 especies. Aquí vemos las mariposas diurnas vivas en las salidas de campo, que tomamos los registros. Otro grupo bien interesante dentro de la colección es la superfamilia Scarabeoidea, que en los últimos años ha tenido un crecimiento bastante interesante, logrado a través de los proyectos de investigación. Para ello hemos utilizado diferentes métodos de captura, trampas de luz, trampas de interceptación, búsqueda directa, ya sean en insectos sociales o en plantas. Aquí vemos una representación. Nosotros no solo estamos capturando los adultos, sino también las larvas, porque las larvas nos están sirviendo para hacer estudios de investigación bien interesantes. Y cuando nosotros salimos a campo, nosotros tenemos una representación bien interesante en la colección de los diferentes ambientes y hábitats que hay dentro del área que estudiamos. La representación en la colección es de la familia Scarabeoidea, la mejor representada, seguida de Igosauridae. En cuanto a la composición taxonómica, igual la familia Scarabeoidea siempre representa la mayor riqueza y la mejor representatividad, seguido de Igosauridae. Y en cuanto a los especímenes tipo, tenemos que hay 8 alotipos, 13 holotipos y 109 paratipos en nuestra colección. La colección del Instituto Alexander von Humboldt es una colección muy interesante porque es una colección que alberga especímenes únicos. Un ejemplo de ello es Calcoclamis dorni, que se conocía solo el holotipo y 109 años después aparece un segundo ejemplar, hembra, con datos precisos de su distribución. Lo mismo pasa con la especie de Pterodon fucarayoni, que es una especie endémica de Colombia y que se encuentra en la Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. Los estados maduros de los Scarabeoidea hoy en día constituyen uno de los retos más importantes que nosotros estamos teniendo, porque estamos constituyendo una colección bien robusta con el objetivo de incluirlo en los estudios filogenéticos para hacer reconstrucciones bien interesantes debido a que estos grupos tienen caracteres conservados que ayudan mucho a la resolución de estas relaciones evolutivas. Un ejemplo de ellos es el último hallazgo que tenemos, que corresponde a la larva del género Echidinus, que no se conocía y que está generando bastante ruido y está dando mucha información a las relaciones dentro de la subfamilia Osmine. También tenemos una colección de escarabajos coprófagos de referencia que nace con la necesidad de unificar los nombres y no dar nombres a una especie con una amplia distribución. El objetivo es que esta taxonomía, que es constantemente dinámica, sujeta a las revisiones que se están haciendo en los grupos, sirva como un insumo importante para los estudios ecológicos y que den robustez a las identificaciones taxonómicas. Aquí nosotros vemos que a partir de tantos insumos ya hemos generado trabajos bien interesantes con la distribución de los escarabines endémicos que hay en Colombia y los diferentes ambientes o regiones naturales donde están. Igualmente ha sido importante todos los procesos de conservación que estamos emprendiendo con la categorización de especies en Colombia. La educación para el conocimiento y conservación de la biodiversidad. Esto es un aspecto clave que nosotros estamos teniendo en cuenta hoy en día en los proyectos de investigación. Trabajo con la comunidad porque son ellos los que van a conservar la biodiversidad y son ellos que tenemos que trabajar. Por eso, muchísimas gracias y como ven, siempre se duerme con los escarabajos en todo momento.
So we do have Jhon joining us online. So for any questions, we also have Jennifer Huron who will help. I'll repeat the question in English and then Jennifer will translate in Spanish and then we'll also do a back translation. So this should be really fun. Is there any questions in the room or online? Ainsley?
I was just wondering about the origins of that collaboration between the University and Kentucky that was mentioned. Was that an international project?
So the question is, what is the origins of the collaboration with the University of Kentucky that was mentioned in the talk?
Hola, Jhon. ¿Cuál era la relación con la Universidad de Kentucky que permitió hacer estos trabajos con la NSF?
Con la National Society Foundation.
Ajá.
Ellos fueron los ejecutores. A través de ese proyecto se logró conseguir dinero para poder muestrear 26 áreas naturales que en ese momento existían a lo largo y ancho del país, y a través de ello también se pudo formar personal de alta calidad como doctores allá en la Universidad de Kentucky. Un ejemplo de ello es el profesor Carlos Sarmiento, del Instituto de Ciencias Naturales.
Pero, ¿te acuerdas cuál fue la persona que estuvo como a cargo de ese vínculo?
Fernando Fernández y Mark Sharkey.
So he says that because of collaborations with Fernando Fernández and Mike Sharkey, they were able to have this agreement with the University of Kentucky, which allowed to bring researchers back and forth, and they were able to sample the 26 national parks that existed at the time in the country.
Yeah.
Excellent. Do we have other questions online or also in the room? No, well, thank you very much, Jhon, and also Jennifer. I think that was really, really cool to be able to see the collection. So next up, we have a tour of Museo de Zoológica Cucas Invertebrados de la Pucha, which is, I'm terrible at Spanish pronunciation, in Quito, Ecuador. And this is also the first tour that we have had in any of the collections of the World Symposia so far from Ecuador. So that's great.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Mi nombre es Tarín. Yo soy la encargada de la colección húmeda del Museo de Zoología, sección Invertebrados de la PUSE. En esta sección nosotros conservamos aproximadamente 800.000 especímenes de invertebrados en alcohol al 75% de diferentes filos. Les cuento que a partir del año 2012 fue cuando arrancó la colección de macroinvertebrados acuáticos, debido a diferentes estudios ambientales que se realizaron en todo el Ecuador para poder ver la calidad de agua. En este grupo, en esta clase insecta, tenemos aproximadamente 4.000 especímenes preservados. Como ustedes pueden observar, esta es la colección de macroinvertebrados acuáticos. Están catalogados desde orden, familia y hasta género. Así, les tenemos conservados de esta manera, como ustedes pueden observar, y también Hola, ¿cómo están? Mi nombre es Tarín. Yo soy la encargada de la colección húmeda del Museo de Zoología, sección Invertebrados de la PUSE. En esta sección nosotros conservamos aproximadamente 800.000 especímenes de invertebrados. Como ustedes pueden observar, esta es la colección de macroinvertebrados acuáticos. Están catalogados desde orden, familia y hasta género. Así, les tenemos conservados de esta manera, como ustedes pueden observar, y también están aquí con su respectiva etiqueta y su código de museo. El continuo análisis taxonómico de estos especímenes nos ha permitido poder sacar o publicar nuevas especies para la ciencia. Esto fue que en el año 2022 descubrimos una nueva especie colectada en el Yasuní, que es Tortopus yasuni, que pertenece a la familia Polimitarsia. A partir del año 2015 y como parte del proyecto Arca BioWeb, disponemos de una colección de tejidos, de insectos del orden Lepidoptera, tenemos también de entomología forense y de macroinvertebrados acuáticos. Estas muestras nosotros las preservamos en una sala de ultracongelación y nuestro objetivo es seguir incrementando esta colección de tejidos. Actualmente tenemos 4.000 muestras porque de esta manera nosotros queremos garantizar el acceso futuro a este recurso genómico para evitar de esta manera la pérdida de la diversidad de la entomofauna ecuatoriana, que como ustedes saben en condiciones naturales se encuentra amenazada. Entonces, les invito a que conozcamos la sala de ultracongelación, donde nosotros tenemos las muestras de tejidos de nuestra entomofauna.
La sala de conservación en seco del museo está conformada por cerca de 1 millón de especímenes de insectos del Ecuador y es considerada uno de los referentes más grandes de nuestro país. Los especímenes están almacenados bajo las normas científicas museológicas que han permitido su permanencia en el tiempo. La mayor parte de los especímenes provienen de estudios realizados por los estudiantes de tesis de biología de la PUSE, proyectos de los investigadores de nuestra facultad y trabajos de investigadores extranjeros asociados al museo. Dentro de nuestra colección, 4 órdenes son los más diversos. Acompáñenme. El orden Coleóptera es uno de los más diversos y mejor estudiados dentro de nuestra colección. Cerca del 50% de nuestra colección está identificada a nivel de especie. Uno de los grupos de las familias mejor trabajadas constituyen el grupo de los escarabaeides, provenientes de recolecciones y trabajos realizados para el monitoreo de impacto ambiental en nuestro país. Fruto de algunos trabajos durante años, son publicaciones como el de los dinástidos, publicado en el 2020, en colaboración con una de nuestras investigadoras y exalumnas de nuestra facultad, en base a especímenes de nuestra colección. Otro grupo es el de los carábidos, que está bien identificado y representado. Aproximadamente el 50% de esta colección está identificado a nivel de especies. Se siguen descubriendo especies nuevas y podemos resaltar aquí el trabajo de Pierre Moret, uno de nuestros investigadores asociados que desde el año 1997 viene realizando sus estudios en las montañas de nuestro Ecuador. El grupo de los dípteros, con familias como Tefritidae, tábanos y algunas moscas relacionadas a la entomología forense, fueron recolectadas con proyectos realizados por nuestros investigadores Álvaro Barragán, Doris Vela, Rafael Cárdenas, entre otros. Estos especímenes son importantes dentro de la agricultura, economía de nuestro país. La colección de los Lepidoptera también es otra de las más representativas en nuestra colección. Es una de las más nuevas. A partir del 2010 se vienen realizando estudios especialmente en los Rhopalocera y provienen la mayoría de 3 provincias del Ecuador: Orellana, Manabí y Esmeraldas, donde nuestra investigadora experta, María Fernanda Checa, realiza su trabajo de investigación. La colección de Hymenoptera también es una colección bastante bien estudiada y también antigua. Aquí tenemos una de las cajas del grupo de los eglosines estudiados por David Ruick, que también publicó en el año 2019 uno de las obras más completas con especímenes de estas abejas de las orquídeas. Tenemos una colección de odonatos organizados en cajas de cartón que se conservan en esta forma, cada uno con sus datos de recolección, su información, están identificados a nivel de especie y están ya ingresados en una base de datos.
Soy Florencio Massa, la persona encargada de la conservación, montaje, etiquetaje y clasificación a nivel de familia de los insectos depositados en el Museo Cucaz. Este proceso termina con la organización de los especímenes en los respectivos armarios.
Una de nuestras colecciones más importantes es la colección de especímenes tipo. Dentro del museo albergamos 353 especies de especímenes de invertebrados y 4.037 ejemplares designados como holotipos, paratipos, alotipos y topotipos.
So I'm not 100% sure why the subtitles misaligned a little bit with that video, but it was still fantastic. We do have a couple of representatives from the Cucas online, so we might be able to ask questions to Taryn or Rafael. So if there are any questions in the room or online, please feel free to answer them.
I think Rafael wanted to share a little more information, but I'm not sure if he's available at the moment. Rafael, are you here? Yes. Wait, you're muted. Rafael, estás en silencio. No te escuchamos. No te escuchamos todavía.
Okay, better
Yes.
there? Okay, yeah. Now I just was telling good evening to everyone. Thank you for being here. And yes, I'm open to questions. If yeah, we have some extra information, but if that's not possible, well, you
You
can
can. We
write out.
have time.
Okay. So, well, something important about our collection is, well, first that we are in a moment of a database digitation in this web page called the bioweb .bio, where we have specimens from flora, fauna, fungi, but in the fauna web, what we call the fauna web, we are still digitizing all our database, which is a big one, as you might understand. We have like 2 million specimens in the collection, so that takes a lot of time. However, this will be available for probably mid 2023. And something important also is that our collection, well, this is a little old collection, our old paper, sorry, our old publication that we made in 2009. Now we are updating this information, but something that was very interesting to see, and as Fernando told in the video, is that our collections are based on what students usually collect in the field. That's part of their work when they take zoology, for example. And so they come to the museum. They have to put the collection in the correct way. I mean, mounted with the pins, etc. And we've seen in this paper doing this special analysis that our collections are very based on how close to the big highways of the country they are. So in green we have the national parks, and we can see that most of our type specimens are collected outside of the national parks. So that was a very interesting thing that made us to change the way we collect. We don't accept any more specimens from some very specific places. It is not that we don't collect at all, but to the students we ask them to go exactly to those empty spaces from the country where we don't have analysis. And in the end, so just to finish, these are the context. So why do we have here a current curriculum? Because we rotate between the five entomologists that we work at the museum, the curation. So for these 2 years, it's my turn. So I'm creating the collection this time, and we have here the names of Tanigia here for the administration of the human collection, and Fernanda Salazar for the sorry, this is dry collection. Okay, dry collection and the database, and that's it. This is the thing that I wanted to share, and thank you for your attention.
There is one question in the chat. How old is the collection?
Yeah, this collection started like in the beginning of the 80s, so it has like 41 years. Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Any questions from the audience?
There are no more questions in the audience. Thank you very much for joining us virtually and sharing that wonderful tour of the collection. So we have about a minute, no, 2 minutes break, but we could perhaps keep going. So then next up, we have a tour of the C.P. Gillette Museum at Colorado State University. It's a quick tour by Marek Borowiec.
Good morning, my name is Chuck Harp. I'm the Research Associate for the C.P. Gillette Museum and Acting Collections Manager. We want to welcome you to the campus of Colorado State University at Fort Collins, Colorado. This is our reception room at the museum. We have an area here that we can bring in groups to tour the different parts of the museum, and a little staging area with some of the photos that we've taken from our specimens using our camera system. The mostly Colorado insects are shown here, and then we've got a few exotics to show. As we step out, we've got a tribute wall to C.P. Gillette and some of the staff and things that went on at the time. He was our first entomologist here at the turn of the century, well known for wasps in the early days. Picture there with Cockerel and Gillette and the staff at the time. We've made up a staff wall for visiting researchers and staff. We have a donation wall where we show the giving levels of different donors to the museum. This room has our input room where we database and image our specimens for the LEPNet grant. We're up to 182,000 entries now that we've databased for moths and butterflies. We've just started the iDig Bees grant, and we've already hit 7,500 entries for that just started. We have a few pictures here of our volunteers. We have now 11 active volunteer students and 5 senior citizen scientists that give us full days of volunteering in the museum. One of the rooms that we use a lot is the imaging room. This is part of the LEPNet grant, but we continue to use that for all the projects. Right now we're digitizing and imaging bees, but we're still doing moths and butterflies. The museum has 4.7 million specimens in it right now. Mainly made up of Great Plains, Rocky Mountain specimens. We have 70,000 vials of aquatic insects, and everything is in an order that follows a checklist in all the groups.
Hi, my name is Dr. Crystal Cook. I'm one of the curators here at the C.P. Gillette Museum. I'm also an instructor here at Colorado State University. So here at our collection, we have about 6,200 Cornell drawers. One thing that's really great about our collection is the environmental conditions that we have here in Colorado, also in the basement of our building. Cool and dry are our primary goals in this collection to preserve DNA. Not only do we have good DNA throughout a lot of our specimens, but we've also demonstrated this through contributing a lot of DNA to projects such as projects documenting the genome of different butterflies across North America. Here we have an area where we use different microscopes for visiting researchers, as well as student and past student volunteers and workers. So we have research stations, each with a microscope, and here we have Riley Hoffman, and she was a previous student of ours, and she is working in one of our labs here identifying ground-dwelling arthropods, and she's just been a pleasure to have around. All right, back this way. Here we have our tribute wall to Miriam Palmer. She was here around the same time that C.P. Gillette was here at the museum. And she was not only an aphid taxonomist, but also a wonderful scientific illustrator. And she illustrated everything from her beloved aphids to things like ground squirrels, weevils, coccinellids as well. She also did a lot working with early attempts to create apple orchards here in Colorado. looking at different pests, mainly aphids, on those apples. And here at the bottom, we have some of her wax apples that she made out of beeswax for the different varieties of apples that we're able to grow here in Colorado.
This is our secondary room. This is our annex. This is a separate room that we have quarantined for new donations coming in and expansion of the moths. We start here just as an entry. We don't do fossil insects, but we do have fossil insects given to us through donations and some older collections back in the 60s and 70s. We've got a case with the fluorescent insects and some of the Douglas Pass areas. Another reception room that comes into this annex. Right now, this is the ending point of the moths, the curated moths. We've been given donations of cabinets, and they're all full of donations right now, waiting to incorporate into the collection. This space will eventually receive compactors. This will hold 85 cabinets. We have lots of room for expansion in here. We've left the tables short for working on them. Got a couple rooms for graduate assistants and students. We use no chemicals in the collection. It's all frozen when it comes in for quarantine. We freeze for 2 weeks and then incorporate them into the regular collection. This space gave us quite a bit of space for visiting researchers. And this project is the Montana Moth Project, where we are documenting moths across the state of Montana. Right now we've got 26,000 specimens that we've added just from the Montana for the last 3 seasons, and that continues to be a project for the next 2 years. But we are the largest repository of specimens from Montana and the Rocky Mountains for this museum. We're the repository of 23 national parks, national monuments, national historic sites. We have agreements with all of those units, and they know that we keep them safe and report on them regularly. So we're proud to be partners with the National Park Service.
So Marek is joining us and we have plenty of time for questions.
Right. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say I'm the new director of the CP July. I will be there for 4 weeks now as of this coming Monday. So I'll do my best to answer your questions, but it's been a steep learning curve getting up to speed on that collection. I'm sorry, what's that? No, I know. I just wanted to say that we skipped a little introduction to our fluid insects part, and also a tour of the library in order to adhere to the strictly enforced 8-minute time cutoff, which now I regret, and in light of a presentation by Michael earlier this morning. But if you have any questions about those, I may answer those as well. Ainsley.
I was just curious about the designation as a repository for our national parks. I was just wondering if you happen to have any information about how that those agreements can be in place, and if you have any special assessment.
Yeah, that's a really good question that I was very curious about myself when I interviewed for that job. So the question was about those agreements with National Park Service and other federal agencies and how they came to be. And my understanding is that it's really started with Chuck, who presented. He had some personal relationships at the National Park Service, and word got around, and sort of different units started saying like, hey, we have all these specimens, we need to have reporting on them. Can you, report and preserve them? And that's what we're doing. So the main real concern there is that they have pretty strict reporting requirements. Every year we complete a lot of paperwork related to that. Luke.
How many rooms? Like, it looks like there's like 20 different rooms. How many rooms?
There are quite the question is how many rooms we have, and there are quite a few rooms. I haven't counted them. Yes.
So I was there several years ago and it seems much more roomy and you have room for expansion. Was there a recent renovation?
Yeah, so the question is if there was a recent renovation. So 3 years ago, the collection was moved into another building. The university abandoned their old student health center building, moved to another place, and they essentially gave the basement of that building to this collection. So they expanded from about 2,200 feet to about 10,000. So unlike many other collections, we're really fortunate to have a lot of space for expansion, and sort of it's an exciting time for the museum. Yep.
I noticed that size freezers and corporate. What happens if you get a sizable donation? Do you like cycle them out? You said you keep them in for 2 weeks. Yeah, more doors to use.
Yeah, that's a good catch. And the question is, we only have 2 freezers. What do you do if you have too many drawers coming in at one time? And the answer is, unfortunately, at this point, we just keep them in the annex and cycle them through. This is not ideal and something that we hope to fix in the future. Cool.
As the new director, with all of that expansion space, do you have plans for it? What are your dreams?
Oh yeah, so as a new director, what are my goals and dreams for the museum? Well, one of the first things that I'm tasked with is developing a strategic plan. So we certainly have a lot of stuff coming in. The collection has been historically pretty strong in Lepidoptera. That's also been the focus of Chalk, who's been the de facto collections manager. And so I think it makes sense to keep the focus on Rocky Mountains and Lepidoptera for now, but we are in the process of developing a prioritization plan for what we continue to incorporate and maybe what donations we don't take. Yeah, I hope that we can add some ants to it because we don't have a lot, and that's my specialty. But we have a lot of insects from the Rocky Mountain region of the Western North America. And so we do have some resources for visiting researchers. There's a lot of the areas in the collection that could benefit from expertise. So if you're interested in visiting the Napa Valley of Beer, as Fort Collins is called, we may have some resources to host you. So, reach out and we'll see what we can do. All right, thank you.
So next up, we have a tour of La Colección Taxonómica Nacional de Insectos Luis María Murillo, or CTNI. Also, this is the third tour from Colombia for today.
Is being recorded. Presentamos la colección taxonómica nacional de insectos Luis María Murillo, una colección con énfasis agrícola en Colombia, cuyos autores son Luisa María Montenegro Silva, Yuli Paola Sandoval Cáceres y quien les habla, Erika Valentina Vergara-Navarro. Esta es una colección creada en 1927, ubicada en el Centro de Investigación Tiva y Tatá del municipio de Mosquera, en el departamento de Cundinamarca. Su énfasis principalmente es agrícola y hace parte del patrimonio biológico de la nación, por lo cual tiene como objetivo curar, conservar, proteger y divulgar la información asociada a los especímenes depositados en ella. Tiene principalmente 3 colecciones que son la colección taxonómica central y la colección de formas inmaduras, la cual corresponde a la parte de investigación a un público especializado, y la colección taxonómica de exhibición que corresponde a un público más general. Lo que corresponde a la colección taxonómica central básicamente es de insectos adultos montados en alfiler, aunque tiene una parte de micropreparados donde encontramos órdenes, para este caso, familias específicas de ciertos subórdenes de Hemiptera que son de importancia en la agricultura, como son Monoflevide, Coccidea, entre otros. Y la colección de formas inmaduras es también importante, ya que muchos insectos en el estado juvenil de larva es principalmente el más activo en los cultivos. tenemos asociaciones directamente con las plantas, están separados por familias y por géneros. Un representante de estos en las formas inmaduras es el caso a mano derecha de Mielovia esmerinta, que es reportado para caña de azúcar. Lo que corresponde a las fortalezas de los grupos taxonómicos de insectos, tenemos Coleóptera, principalmente con 61 familias y 805 géneros, donde tenemos material tipo de la familia Cerambicide, Melolontide, Nitidulide y del grupo de Chrysomélide, su familia Bruchine. Para Lepidoptera tenemos 459 géneros de 51 familias. Para Hemiptera tenemos 436 géneros de 720 especies de 58 familias, donde encontramos material tipo de distintos subórdenes como son Auquenorrinca, Membrasis cicadélide, Heteroptera tingidimíride y para el caso de Sternorrinca, Cócide, Eriocóxide, Rizoécide, entre otros. Para el grupo de Diptera tenemos 281 géneros de 46 familias y aproximadamente 6.830 especímenes sistematizados. Es importante tener presente que esto se refiere al material sistematizado y catalogado. Para este grupo tenemos familia Pipinculide, Sarcophagidae, Taquinidae con material tipo. Se está haciendo en este momento la curaduría de Hymenoptera y el grupo de ácaros. A pesar de que la distribución es básicamente a nivel de Colombia, tenemos especímenes de 24 países donde están depositados precisamente representantes de especies que son consideradas nocivas en la agricultura a nivel mundial. La identificación de las misceláneas está apoyada no solamente por el uso de claves taxonómicas y contacto con especialistas de distintos países como Estados Unidos, Francia, Italia, Argentina, México, Brasil y Colombia, sino que tenemos apoyo de dos colecciones también con énfasis agrícola en el país, como son el Museo Entomológico Francisco Luis Gallego y el Museo Entomológico UNAV, ambos de la Universidad Nacional de Colombia, sede de Medellín y sede de Bogotá respectivamente. Por ser una colección con énfasis agrícola, las relaciones que muestran los insectos recolectados están asociadas principalmente a 113 familias botánicas, donde encontramos especies en particular que son de plantas cultivadas. También tenemos no solamente esta parte de la relación con la planta, sino el hábito que de una u otra manera tiene el insecto con ella, ya que tenemos el tipo de fitofagia específicamente que se encontró en la planta, las relaciones de parasitoidismo, de depredadores, no solamente que se da entre insecto e insecto, también tenemos asociaciones de insectos vertebrados, como es el caso de la parte pecuaria. Lo que corresponde a la divulgación y socialización de la importancia de este patrimonio biológico, tenemos una parte a lo que corresponde al público especializado, que son revistas académicas, científicos, libros, capítulos, entre otros, como lo que podemos mirar aquí, que fue lo que se sacó recientemente, que fue el catálogo de Coleóptera de la colección, pero también tenemos muchas publicaciones que tienen que ver con registros en el país de insectos que no se conocían, siendo nocivos para algunas plantas. El público general está más que todo atendido desde el punto de vista de la colección taxonómica de exhibición, donde encontramos atención a públicos de diferentes niveles, van desde jardines, colegios, universidades, incluso productores y gremios en general, a través de visitas guiadas que se hacen en el centro de investigación. Con el apoyo de las redes sociales de la corporación, con el hashtag insectos de colección, se llega aproximadamente a 60 infografías en este momento, donde tenemos la relación del insecto con la planta donde se ha encontrado y un dato curioso de la especie en particular. Lo que corresponde a la página web, que es mucho más amplia y tiene información directamente no solamente para un público general, sino especializado, uno entra directamente a lo que corresponde al orden. Más tarde uno escoge exactamente, para este caso escogimos el orden Lepidoptera, familia Notodontidae, Dentro del notodontide encontramos varios géneros. Siempre estamos representando el hábitus de las diferentes especies, representando una fotografía por familia y una fotografía también por género. Aquí escogimos el género de miceras. Nos muestra específicamente cuántos especímenes registrados tenemos en la colección de este grupo, en cuántos departamentos y cuántos taxones vegetales están asociados. También tenemos lo que corresponde a la distribución de los especímenes que están en la colección y la base de datos correspondiente a estos especímenes, la cual puede ser descargada de manera abierta. También tenemos lo que corresponde al material tipo depositado en la colección de los diferentes órdenes, y cuando llegamos a la especie en particular encontramos fotos directamente de los ejemplares tipo que se encuentran allí depositados. En la página directamente de la corporación encontramos también divulgación de manera general de lo que tiene que ver con especies nuevas que están depositadas en la colección, en nuevos cultivos, o lo que corresponde nuevas descripciones que se realizan para la ciencia. También tenemos, como cualquier museo de diferentes tipologías que tienen pieza del mes, nosotros tenemos en nuestra página web el insecto del mes, lo cual nos permite mantener una dinámica en la página, no es estática. Aquí tenemos ejemplos para el 2022 del insecto del mes de noviembre, del insecto del mes de septiembre, que cuando abrimos directamente la especie en particular nos abre una infografía donde encontramos la parte taxonómica del insecto, el hábitus del insecto, la distribución que tiene ese insecto en la CTNI, por así decirlo, y la relación que tienen con las plantas asociadas, en particular depositadas en la colección. Asimismo, tenemos una parte de multimedia donde llegamos a público general o especializado con videos como El maravilloso mundo de los insectos, o uno muy particular que se llama No son bichos, son insectos. Aquí también tenemos lo que tiene que ver con, no solamente se pueden ver desde la página del Agrosavia CTNI, sino desde Agrosavia TV en YouTube, la colección taxonómica nacional de insectos, la visita virtual, no solamente desde el punto de vista de la colección de investigación, sino la parte de la colección de exhibición localizada también en el municipio de Mosquera. Muchas gracias.
So we have some time for questions that will be translated multiple times. So if there is anyone in the audience or online that has a question for Erika Vergara, yes. So the question, sorry, there's like multiple feedback everywhere. The question was firstly a compliment to the quality of the infographics. So is there a team that works on them, and what makes their quality so great?
Erika, ¿estás?
Sí, señora.
Bueno, preguntan que, bueno, primero que felicitaciones porque la información de las infografías se ve súper bien. Entonces preguntan que si tienen un equipo dedicado a hacer ese tipo de infografías.
Hay una persona en la colección, se llama Julie Paola Sandoval, y ella nos apoya en lo que tiene que ver con la infografía después de que todo el material. Vamos escogiendo mensual exactamente qué es el insecto que está mejor distribuido, que tenemos mejor representación, y ese es el que vamos escogiendo para colocarlo mensual. Y todas están descargables, o sea, desde que empezó la página podemos descargar desde las del 2019, 20, 21, o sea, nunca se van quitando.
Vale. So she says that they do have a person in the collection that is the one is actually one of the presenters, Julie. So she is in charge of the diagramming, of putting the information into the infographics. But they, as a team, they choose which of the species is worth presenting, and all the infographics that they have to date are available on their website. They don't take them down.
I think we had another question in the room. Yeah, that's back.
The area where they had all the school children and those nice pictures and everything, is that part of the museum, or did they set that up special at another place?
So the question is about the area in the video that had all the school children and the different exhibit there. Is that part of the museum itself, or is it a different separate area that was set up specifically?
So, están preguntando, dentro del video tenías una sección donde hay niños pasando a través de la exhibición. ¿Esa exhibición está dentro de la colección, en el mismo edificio, o es como un lugar separado? Valentina. ¿Me escuchaste? Ya no te escucho. Erika.
We have a Spanish speaker in the room who can directly ask in Spanish.
I think there is a little bit of, there seems to be a little bit of a technical issue right now, but perhaps we can, if we can get Erika back, we might be able to answer that question later. But this is the unfortunate nature of virtual conferences, but fingers crossed, we might be able to reconnect later. So the next tour, we're still running a little bit ahead of time, but the next tour is of CERPE, the birth of a new entomological collection in northeastern Brazil. And this time we will have Bruno de Meros as in-person Portuguese translator, because this is a tour from Brazil.
Hello, my name is Paschoal Grossi, and I'm the collection manager of CERP. And I will present you this small and new collection. Where we are at northeastern Brazil, Pernambuco state, and in the city of Recife. And CERP is located at the Universidade Federal Rural de Pernambuco. Here is our building, completely or almost completely surrounded by Atlantic forest. A very interesting place to catch insects. At the beginning of CERP was at 2014, when I started my job here at the university. At that time, we had only this cabinet with 36 drawers, but they were in pint of material, or only scattered specimens damaged by other specimens, that plagues of collections. So this was my lab, my office, and also where CERP started. During the first 3 years of CERP, we changed every month or every year the confirmation of this room. And also we bought more of 50 new drawers and started to advise postgraduate students of master and PhD. So we really started to work with taxonomy of beetles. In the years of 2017, 2018, we received two very, very important donations from FPR in Curitiba. And they sent us 3 modules, about 140 drawers, and 2 cabinets like this with 80 drawers. So we started to see some kind of light, and that we could really do this and make a collection, an institutional collection here at Recife. So from 2014 to now, we had some projects approved, about 2 or 3 projects approved that were very important to acquire equipment, pins, and also to do some trips of collection here at Pernambuco State. We received that modules and that cabinets and that drawers. And also we started to look for a new place to serve at the university. So during another 3 years, 2019 to 2021, we started a renovation of SERP, and a new place was given to us. And so we could finally have a space to destinate the collection, isolated from people, from other stuffs, and a place designated only for the collection. That was finished at 2021. And finally we have now a place to SERP. And now we have about 400 drawers of insects, pined and dried insects, and many specimens to be prepared. So here it's a small view of the modules and some drawers with beetles, mainly Scarabioida here, some Filaurini, some Eurictini here. That's the group one of the groups that we are studying now and advising students with. Other Genastini groups here, Cyclocephalini, that we have a collection with all the genera of Cyclocephalini. Other smaller families of Scarabioida, and my favorites, that are the stag beetles. Here Macrocrates, Apterodorcus, and Cantaroletrus. And about Lucanidae, we have a very well represented collection of stag beetles. We have all the genera from Neotropical region, almost all species, or almost all Neotropical species are represented at SERP. And we have a very, very good collection of world stag beetle fauna with almost all the genera represented. So the collection has now about 300,000 pinned insect specimens and about 1 million specimens to be prepared. So, of course, we will need more space in the future. Of Coleoptera, that is the main representatives of the SERP. We have about 113 families, and in numbers of species and specimens, 90% are represented by Scarabioida. But also we have another superfamilies very well represented, as Chrysomeloida, Corpulionoida, and the others. Other group very well represented at the SERP is Hymenoptera. that we have mainly Aculeata and some Sulflice family. In Aculeata, 90% are Apoidea. And also other smaller groups are represented at SERP by pinnated specimens, but with less than 5% of the collection are represented by them. Other strength of the collection are the type material. And it's the first time that holotypes of beetles are deposited at collections here in Pernambuco. And I think that now we have a collection that has many holotypes, many incoming holotypes with the new publications, and several or hundreds of paratypes. So we have now about 40 holotypes, mainly beetles, mainly Scarabeuida, and one holotype of Chrysopodida, that is a Phasmatodea, or sticky bug. Some curiosities of the collection, we have some very old specimens from 9th century, as these Oxyligirus nasutus, and some freak specimens also, as this genandromorph of Chilotrops, that is a genus of Asian Gynastini. Our actual members of SERP have me in the staff of SERP, Dr. Parisotto, the curator of Hymenoptera, and Dr. Santos, our technician. That's very important also. Important to make the collection alive, to help it to receive students, receive material, and prepare it also the material and the students, and our collaborators. We have two postdoc, Dr. Duarte and Dr. Ferreira, and many undergraduate and postgraduate students also. So the future of SERP. As I mentioned, we will need more space in the future as any collection of insects as it grows each year. So one of the things we are doing here, and it started some years ago, and now we are concluding some acquisitions of smaller collections, mainly regional collections from here, from Pernambuco state and the northeastern region, as this collection of insects that came from Dr. Carlos Alberto Carrano. As he is retired, he donated his collection to us, and it is now being incorporated to SERP. There are general insect orders, but mainly, or the most important things are the ambrosia beetles that are have very many identified species and very good representative of the genera of ambrosia beetles from here. And also the Everardo and Paschoal Grossi collection that I used to say that is the base of SERP. That is where all began. That is the start, my start, as a collection manager, as a researcher, as a collector of beetles. So since my childhood, I started to be in love with beetles. And then I make my hobby my job. And so in the future, I don't know what future, but we will have also EPGC incorporated to SERP. So this collection is a huge collection with about 500 drawers of beetles from the world, mainly Scarabeuida, but also with other very well represented groups, as Buprestidae, Ceramicide, Corculhoide. And this collection is a very good example of a very, very well collection about Scarabeoidea, mainly Gymnastini and Lucanide, that we have almost all the genera of the world that we represent in this. So that's it. Thank you for your time and have a nice day.
Okay. Thank you, Paschoal. Are you there? Paschoal, tá aí?
Oi, Bruno. Sim, estou.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any questions for Paschoal? O que é ginandromorfo? What's a ginandromorph?
É um espécime que tem parte de exemplares masculinos e parte de exemplares femininos, né? Pode ser um ginandromorfo bilateral, que é o caso daquele exemplar que eu mostrei, e ele pode ser com outras partes do corpo. Então, é uma mistura, é uma malformação, né, na verdade, e que são raros normalmente na natureza.
So it's a specimen that has like it's partly male, partly female. It's a malformation, and in that case, it's half male and half female, and the species that he showed there. So, yeah. Any other questions? Mike?
Are they doing any kind of bulk collecting in the pieces of Atlantic forest around?
Vocês estão fazendo algum tipo de coleta a roda, assim, um monte de coleta na Mata Atlântica, por aí?
Sim, estamos principalmente com malese. Temos 4 maleses desde janeiro, são maleses de 6 metros cada uma, e coletas ativas, né? São 8 anos, né, que nós estamos aqui, e há 8 anos a gente tem reunido bastante material da Mata Atlântica daqui. Então, nós hoje temos uma coleção bastante representativa de insetos, na verdade. A gente acaba coletando tudo.
Okay, so sorry about people online. I forgot to say it in English. So the question was whether they're doing any bulk collecting. And Paschoal said that they are. They have been doing it for 8 years, especially Malay trapping. They've been doing more recently. So yeah, so that should be a lot of good stuff there. Any other questions? Okay, obrigado, Paschoal. Thank you, Paschoal. And yes, the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paschoal, and also Bruno for translating. That was much more seamless having an in-person translator. So we did also get a follow-up answer to the question to Erika Vergara about whether or not the exhibition space and the collection space were in different buildings. Unfortunately, her internet connection crashed at the exact moment, but the response is that the research collection and the exhibits collection are in separate spaces within the research center, and the exhibits are displayed within the library. So it's great to be able to reconnect on that. So finally, to wrap up this Collections of the World Symposium for 2022, we have a final talk back, most locally, for another talk from Canada, and this one is an introduction to the Strickland Entomological Collection at the University of Alberta here in Edmonton, and welcome to the stage.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, so I'm just going to be talking to you guys about the Strickland Museum at the University of Alberta. Yeah, and this is just a picture of our hallway display where I try to lure students in and get them into entomology. All right, so yeah, just a few of the things I want to talk about and give you guys a really brief history of the museum. Also because a lot of this information is available online on a virtual tour we've put together that we're still working on, but anyways, I'll mention that a bit. Talk about the current staff at the museum, as well as the priorities of the collection, which also coincide with my priorities, as it's my job. And then talk about some of the current challenges that we're facing at the museum. All right, actually, can I? Oh, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. Okay. Anyhow, all right. So layout in the History Museum, as I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Just because we do have that virtual tour that's available. If you basically search for the Strickland Museum virtual tour, you can see that and we have a lot of information about the museum and the history there. But yeah, just a quick overview. In 2022, so this year, we just celebrated our 100th anniversary of entomology at the University of Alberta. And yeah, basically our collection has around 1 million specimens, a little bit more because of some of the recent acquisitions we've had. We have 3 main collections in the museum. Well, and I should also mention that a little over 300,000, probably around 350,000 have been digitized at this point within the collection. And we have closer to 400,000 that in total that have transcribed data that's in the process of being published online. Anyhow, we have 3 main collections within the Strickland Museum. We have the proper Strickland collection, which is basically all of our pinned insects and a lot of our ethanol preserved specimens. We have the freshwater invertebrate collection, and that's where this is a collection that's largely used for teaching, but it's also representative of freshwater invertebrates in Alberta. And then we just recently acquired the parasitology collection. It was essentially an orphaned collection through changes in the staffing at the university. So we've made room for that because we have a really nice liquids preservation room with fire suppression systems and whatnot. So yeah, so with that collection being incorporated, yeah, as I said, we're getting a little ways past the 1 million specimen mark. Anyway, some of the history of the museum, some of the past curators. You have Colonel Strickland at the top left there. He was a war vet in World War I and World War II. He was wounded in World War I while he was serving in a machine gun brigade. And so in World War II, he actually was a commanding officer for a military basic training camp. But in 1922, that's when he actually established the entomology department at the University of Alberta. So hence our 100th year anniversary. After Colonel Strickland, we had George Ball that took over as the curator of the museum. That's the bottom left. Oh, sorry. In that collection, the drawers that you can see on the top right, that's the original collection for the Strickland Museum. So that's the 100-year-old collection that has good representation from a lot of Alberta and with a particular focus on Diptera. Anyways, George Ball, bottom left, he was the next curator. He was a very renowned carabidologist and yeah, did some amazing work. And right up until his death, he was very involved in the museum. He was always supporting research and students coming through. So he was a very prominent figure. He also served in World War II in the Marine Corps and fought in Okinawa. So kind of interesting military heritage to our museum. Bottom right, we have Danny Spillet. He was my predecessor, and he's still actually volunteering at the museum, helping with our initiative to database the collection. He's an exceptional resource, and he had a very long career working at the museum and also supporting all sorts of research and learning at the university. So just to show you guys a little bit of the museum, as I said, we have in the top left, that's our hallway display. And then when you come into the museum, I have an area set up that's top right where people coming in can kind of gather around. I have a lot of tour groups coming through, all sorts of students and ranging from grade 3 all the way up to we've had high school and other university classes coming through. But anyways, that's the area where we'll kind of talk to them and show them some of the neat specimens there. And then in the bottom left, that's just some more of the collection and going back towards my office in the back space, which is in the bottom right. We have all the back benches of the entire museum are set up to support research and people that want to come in and use the collection for various purposes. So yeah, that's basically where we have our research support. All right, the current staff at the museum, we have Felix Sperling, and I think most of you are probably familiar with Felix. He's the curator of the museum, and then I'm the assistant curator. So as the curator of the museum, Felix basically does a lot of the, of course, I can't think of the word now, but anyways, he's basically a cheerleader. He's a huge advocate. That's the word I was looking for the museum. Does a lot of work kind of promoting the museum and promoting interests in the museum. And he also sits through all those horrible bureaucratic meetings so that I don't have to. And then I'm basically running the day-to-day operations in the museum. So a bit more about Felix. He did his master's with George Ball. All right. He got his PhD from Cornell. Both his master's and his PhD involved working with swallowtail butterflies. He really likes swallowtail butterflies, as you can see by the wildly passionate expression right there, but definitely loves his swallowtails. But yeah, and then he was a professor at UC Berkeley, and he got very involved in the management of the Essig Museum there. Currently now he's the curator of the Strickland, as I just mentioned. He teaches several entomology courses, including like terrestrial arthropod diversity, and focuses on diversity within Alberta, as well as some other courses. And he also runs his research lab at the university, where he focuses on molecular systematics with all sorts of different groups. There's also a focus in LEPS there, but yeah, other groups as well. For example, I was a student there in Felix's lab, and I studied mountain pine beetle. Yes, and he's also the co-founder of several groups, including Alberta Leps and Alberta Bugs. Yes, and he's had some people come through his labs that have gotten involved in museums. I don't have a laser pointer or anything, but there's people like Jason Dombrowski, who's now the collections manager at Cornell, as well as Brian Brunet, top left in the lower image. He was working with University of Alberta Museums for a while before he moved to Ottawa and became a research scientist. As for myself, as part of the reason I'm doing this talk is because I'm fairly new to this group, and I wanted to introduce myself, give you guys a little bit of my history. I started in 2020 during the pandemic. I basically was just told, okay, go. I wasn't even given a key to the museum. I had to figure out how to do that. It was an interesting time, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm learning a huge amount. And luckily we have people like Danny that are still around and kind of showing me the workings at the museum. Yeah, I'm kind of carrying on the weird military heritage, I guess. I was in the army for 5 years in Afghanistan. And then, yeah, after I released, I kind of wanted to use my brain a little bit more. So I guess I eventually went to university. I did some work in Honduras, where I studied pelicinid wasps. And then eventually, through a weird series of events, I wound up getting into Felix's lab and working on mountain pine beetle, where I studied mountain pine beetle population dynamics within Alberta, as well as their transcriptomics, like the genes related to their flight performance and things like that, just looking at different, and also their morphology, so different correlates of flight. Anyhow, and then, yeah, and that involved a lot of work in the forest. That's one thing I really miss now, is not really working in the field so much, but a lot of work in the forest. But now I jumped into this position where a huge amount of it is public interaction, public outreach, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, also curating the museum, of course, and getting that. And actually, I'm going to show you guys a little bit more about that. So that's my purposes in life right now, are research support, teaching and supporting different courses at university, as well as the public outreach aspect. So a little bit more about that. Research support. One of the biggest things is, of course, that initiative to database specimens. So that's a huge amount of work. It's one of our main priorities. Of course, specimens in drawers with no digitized information aren't necessarily that useful unless you know about them. So making digitized, that's a great way to get those specimens out there, and then also attract people to come in and actually work with those specimens and maybe get better identifications, more specific identifications and things like that. So that's a huge thing that we're working towards. Danny and Felix did a huge amount of work in getting our database and everything set up, and we're just continuing to advance that as things move along here. Yeah, as I said, another big thing is providing research space. So we have all sorts of different grad students, undergrad students, people that use these resources. We have imaging stations and things like that. And that's something that we're always promoting in the museum. So I do have a lot of people that come in and image their specimens for the research and stuff like that. We also provide space for TAs to prepare for their courses and things like that. So parasitology courses and whatnot will have space for them to prepare their specimens. Yep, so basically the whole back part of the museum is fairly active, which is nice to see. We have a lot of people coming through and working in there. On the teaching aspect of it, this is more me in particular, but it ties in with the museum in a way. So I teach the introductory entomology course at the university and Ent 101, which also happens to be a Coursera, like online massive course that's free for the public as well. But then there's also the credit version that we do through the university as an introductory entomology course. I also teach the medical and veterinary entomology every second year at the university. And then I'm currently developing a field entomology course with my colleague, Dr. Ronald Batias, where we're going to be actually doing, giving the students an opportunity to design and go through their own full research project all the way through to actually presenting their work and stats and everything, doing this statistics. So it's going to be a really interesting course, but that's what we're currently developing. Hopefully going to be running this next summer. I coordinate labs for several different courses, terrestrial arthropods, the terrestrial arthropod diversity course, aquatic arthropods, and then also I help with a lot of the dissections. That's one of the things I enjoy doing. So yeah. And yeah, as I said, the space, I give space for, and I support other TAs, like teaching assistants as I need to. So the big thing about this and how it ties into the museum is, yes, I have a lot of these other responsibilities that take away from the time I get to spend directly in the museum, which is unfortunate, but it gives me an awesome resource base for volunteers. Because that introductory entomology course, we get all kinds of, fresh university students that are really interested in insects. Some of them aren't interested in insects at all, but they usually get interested in the end, which is awesome. And then also the medical and veterinary entomology has all sorts of people that, the students that are, I'm going to be a doctor, so I need 6 million hours of volunteer time. I can provide that for them. So it actually works out quite nicely. Yeah, the public outreach, which was probably the part of this job that scared the bejesus out of me at first, actually became my favorite part of this job. Yeah, basically I do all sorts of tours and I promote the museum as well as the insectary at the university. So I'll bring in live specimens. Hissing cockroaches are usually pretty popular, things like that. Yeah, so I do these tours for a lot of elementary schools, science camps over the summers, as well as different university courses that want to come down and see what our facilities are like. Yeah, and then as well as on open houses and things like that. So we get a lot of people coming through, and it's really nice to kind of see people getting quite interested in entomology when they come through the museum. That Bugs 101 course I mentioned, that's on Coursera, it's free to the public, and that's actually a place I get a lot of people that take that course that then contact me, and I'll take them through to the museum and they bring their kids, and it's a good time. But yeah, it's a great way to promote entomology, and people are, once they know more about it, they stop being so scared of a lot of these things. So it's really nice to see. We're also working on this really awesome project, a collaboration with the Edmonton Public Libraries, where they have these 2-story tall screens in the library that have interactive bases where you can touch buttons and move things around. So I've reached out to the Alberta Bugs group that I mentioned previously, and asked if anybody would be interested in putting forth some of their photographs of insects. And I got awesome results, amazing responses, some absolutely beautiful images, beautiful macro images. And so we're putting together this huge display on this 2-story screen that is going to be open to the public at all times in the museum, so they can come in and actually see the insect world up close, like really get a good view. Because insects, they can be creepy and all that stuff. But when you see a big dragonfly up close, they're kind of cute with big eyes and everything. So anyways, I think it's going to kind of show people a lot of what they've been missing when they just think that the little speck that landed on them is just that, a little speck. So it should be quite interesting. And anyways, I'll keep you guys posted. Anyhow, and then the other aspect of my job is we also deal with the public when they have different concerns or identification requests we'll identify specimens for them. And we also work with Alberta Health doing some medical identifications as well as proficiency testing for their labs. So a few things there. Current challenges, basically, okay, transmutation of data from spreadsheets to being online. I use the word transmutation on purpose because sometimes it feels like it'd be easier to do the lead into gold thing than get all that data online, because we use MIMSI as our database, and you have to have everything matching perfectly and all that stuff, and it's coming along. That's one of the challenges though with having so many volunteers. It's a lot of time training them and getting them through the system, and then also, you know, fixing mistakes and bad habits as they're going through. But it all translates to more time on my end to get things to actually fit into our database. So it can be a lot of work. And then, yes, the eternal struggle between record quality and quantity. So if any of you want to talk about this, it's like one of those, oh, you could spend days debating this, because if the information, if you have perfect records, but you're spending a day per specimen or whatnot, getting them, you're gonna have millions of specimens that just never get seen, right? But if you wind up going the other route where you just kind of have, bare bones records going out that don't really have any useful information with them, that might not be so useful either. So anyways, yes, this is something that I'm working on and I'd love to chat. Anyways, yes, so it's been quite good. We've had a lot of surge in public interest in the museum lately, a lot of demand for tours and things like that. It's been going really well. The downside is we have a lot of demand for tours. So we had that surge and you know what I'm saying. Anyways, lots of demand for time, but it's coming along. And I'm kind of working on systems where I might be able to start putting days aside for tours and have larger groups come through and things like that. So it's just going to be a matter of streamlining. Yeah, and then the last thing, of course, is trying to get funding for different things in the museum. I'm going to be working on some things there, but basically, yeah, just getting donation appraisals, finding people that do donation appraisals. I think everyone in this room probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. All right, thank you. I don't know if it's time. Is that it?
Yeah, we probably have time for one question.
Yeah. It's a recorded online course.
You might want to sit.
Sorry.
People online.
Terribly sorry. Okay, Bugs 101. The question was basically what kind of course is Bugs 101? Is it in person? That course is actually, it's an online course. It's all recorded videos that you can watch. It's all done up as modules with little quizzes integrated and questions and things like that. And it also has all sorts of forums. It's kind of nice. You get a community of people that are taking the course and working together, answering each other's questions. And I'm always monitoring that. That's my job with the online one, is facilitating. If questions come up, I try to make sure that the right answers come out and things like that. But yeah, so it's mostly online, but there are some aspects where you're talking with real people, and I'm always available through email for that. Every week we're getting around 90 new people signing up for it. And I think there's been nearly 40,000 that have taken the course so far. So there's times of the year that it takes a lot of my time to keep up with the discussions, but it's good to see awesome feedback from the public. It's been very, very nice. Is there time for one?
I have another question. I have a demand. So I don't next you'll come back and tell us more about the relationship with Coursera and you guys tell us that.
Oh, sure. So the demand was I come back and talk more about Coursera next time. And actually, that's a great idea. And I should have thought of that. That's awesome. So anyways, I'll try to do something like that next year. All right, thank you.